What's cracking, big dogs? Back at you again this week with the feature film. We got The Godfather back on the pod. Missed his presence last week. Probably one of the best episodes we've ever done, if I'm being honest. But we got him back this week, and we're gonna run this show a little bit differently. But before we get into it, Noah, man, you know what time it is, baby.
Already? You want me to hit the intro?
Wow, it was a quick. Doesn't even welcome us in. We don't.
That's
even
crazy
get to
because
say
he knew
hi
if
or
he
nothing.
kept
He goes
going, I was
straight
going to
to
hit
the
it
intro.
regardless.
Yeah, I'm trying to time. I was trying to catch him off guard. All right, so
All right, let's hit that
we
intro.
normally. We normally do a weekly recap, and I think this week we're going to approach it a little bit differently, mainly because we're a good chunk into the season, man. Honestly, we've lasted longer than I thought we would last. So
That's what
we're
she
like,
said.
we're 7 games in. Some teams have had a bye earlier than expected, but you're almost halfway through your fantasy season.
We're halfway
right?
through the regular season. Yeah.
Yeah, we're halfway through the regular season. So it's time to take a look back, and we're going to try and do a redraft of the first 2 rounds of a Superflex rookie draft, assuming we know what we know now. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, we were going through this today, and we were kind of going back and forth and just doing the picks, and it's crazy, man. It's honestly crazy. Like, it goes to show, like, none of us know anything. Not me, not Nick, not Noah, not fucking Matthew Berry, not anyone. We don't know anything. But what we do know is it's going to be incredibly different, but it's going to be interesting to go through these. And, some of us, sometimes we'll be probably pretty similar between all 3 of us, and then sometimes we'll probably deviate a little bit. So we'll kind of get into that. But without further ado, let's get into this little business right here. So I got your boy, got the pick 101, got blessed by the Godfather here. And
I like this. You keep calling me the Godfather. You keep that going. I like that a lot.
Yeah, so we're gonna keep going with it, but I got the 101, and nothing's really changed for me here. And maybe this comes as a shock to others, but I'm still going with my boy Jonathan Taylor at the 101 overall. Granted, the QBs have been balling. Joe Burrow looks great, and we'll get into the couple of the other ones later. But for me, Jonathan Taylor's been disappointing. So I think this might be a little bit of shock for people to see him down here. I don't know if you guys would have picked Jonathan Taylor, but I still really, really value workhorse running backs. And to be quite frank, he's disappointed for the earlier part of the season. But over the last couple of weeks, he's gotten a little bit better for me. And the workload is secure. The coaches clearly do believe in him and still want to use him. And I think it's just, 21-year-old rookie running backs are incredibly valuable and hard to come by. So whenever I can take a shot on him, I'm just going to do it every time.
Yeah, I was curious to see what you ended up doing 101. I would end up doing the same thing. I would have taken Taylor there just because I as well value the running back position. It's incredibly difficult to kind of replace them on your team if you don't have them, especially like high-end ones. And I still think that we're going to see plenty of juice out of Taylor, towards the second half of the season and then going into next year. So Taylor was 101 for me. I was curious as to whether or not you'd go Taylor or pivot to the quarterbacks. And I know we weren't really bought into going with the quarterbacks early on in the Superflex, but now that we've seen what they are on the field, like, I'm very, very comfortable, which is why I took Joe Burrow at the 102 here. I mean, up until right now, I think you probably could have made the case for Burrow or Herbert, but I'm looking at Joe Burrow, and I think that they build a line around this kid, and you probably have Aaron Rodgers in his prime for the next 8 to 10 years or whatever. And I was looking at some 16 game paces up to this point in the season. Since we're 7 weeks in, he's on pace to finish with over 4,600 passing yards, 4,624, which would easily be the most by rookie quarterback of all time. It crushes Andrew Luck's record by over 250 passing yards. He's on pace for 21 passing touchdowns. He'd be the 13th player ever to throw for 21 or more in his rookie year. His completion rate, 3rd highest ever for a rookie quarterback. And he's also adding a ton on the ground, man. That's why we talked about him a lot this offseason. Like, he's a sneaky good athlete. Same with Rodgers, where he's probably going to finish with between 270 and 300 on the ground. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns already. The question is, how successful will they be in building an actual offensive line around him, man? Because right now, he's on pace to get sacked 64 times this year. 64. That would be the highest number since fucking David Carr back in 2005. And that literally ruined that sack number. Basically retired David Carr out of the NFL. But Joe Burrow's handled it.
How many of those sacks came in the Baltimore game? Like 20 of them?
At least like 45% of them. So Joe Burrow's been able to take those sacks in stride and still succeed, like play through that. It's not in his head. It's not a mental thing. So at this point, Joe Burrow's lived up to every bit of the pre-draft and preseason and summer hype. And I'm sold as using him as a cornerstone piece for the remainder of his career.
Yeah, and the offense that they're building around him, I know the offensive line is still a little bit sketchy, but the fact that they add Titty Higgins, who looks legit, even AJ Green to this point looks like he's kind of his old self, getting like 15 targets and turning into 70 yards, which is whatever. Tyler Boyd's looking good out there. Joe Mixon, when he comes back from injury, he's going to be a big part of this offense. All they're really missing, I guess, is a tight end, which doesn't really matter all that much, and that offensive line. But it's good to see that they did invest in a guy like Jonah Williams and Billy Price a few years ago. That defense always stinks. They're in a competitive division. They're going to be throwing. Joe Burrow is going to be a beast. His floor is like Carson Wentz. His ceiling is like Aaron Rodgers, as Nick said. Maybe not real life talent, but for fantasy purposes, he can add something on the ground. He throws the ball a hell of a lot. So I'm fine with that at the 102, but I felt a little disrespected. And maybe it was because you guys wanted me to take him at the 103. I wrote Justin Herbert. Nick very quickly erased it and turned it to the Herbinator. And I took out the ATE.
That was a compliment. The Herbinator. No one gets a nickname that cool unless I respect them.
Yeah.
Dude,
I couldn't believe you took a tight end at 103, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah, a little weird considering the tweet thread that I put out the other day, how I'm not going to go up and grab a tight end earlier on in drafts, and then you come out here and you disrespect the Godfather. Unbelievable.
This is so disrespectful. You guys should see like the spreadsheet we have. The tight end list, the number one is just LOL. Like that's how little tight ends there are, and they're shitting on Herbert at the 103. But to be honest, to this point, this guy's been fucking incredible. I still remember looking at my TV like this 4 months ago and about to cry because they took Justin Herbert. The volume was off. I read Goodell's lips and I just went into a sunken place. The fact that he went out there and he's like thrown 50, or he has 15 touchdowns over his past 3 games, or 15 touchdowns to this point this season and 11 over his past 3 games. He's just looked incredible. They've completely handed the keys over to him in this offense, despite Tyrod Taylor seemingly like being their franchise quarterback in the early part of the season. 1 punctured lung, that's all it took for Justin Herbert to take over and become an animal. He's running the ball a lot. I guess that's a little bit because of their offensive line being in shambles and not having a good running game because they have Josh Kelly back there who's not a good running back. But what we've seen out of him is he's just a very versatile type of quarterback that can throw the ball deep to Jalen Guyton, who I've never heard of him in my entire life, or he can just pound it up the middle for like 60 yards. So to me, he's a Josh Allen type who is transitioning to the NFL a lot more seamlessly than Josh Allen did. He's got a pretty good stable of weapons around him with Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler when he's back from injury, Keenan Allen, who just got locked up.
Like the Bengals too, where it's like they have a really nice supporting cast. They need to tighten some of the bolts, no pun intended there. They get the O-line fixed up a little bit, but Herb's been fucking lights out, man. He's looked really, really good, and I like what they're building there in LA.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. I mean,
would you have taken him at the 102? What would you guys have done there, Burrow or Herbert?
So I'm a little bit different. I still would have gone CEH at 102, but like I have no quarrels with.
You're a fucking idiot, Noah.
I actually moved Herbert 1 spot ahead of Burrow, so they're like back to back for me in my rankings.
Yeah, I prefer Burrow a tad, but I think this year like Herbert's gonna produce him. He has a way better situation. But what I will say is like I tweeted this today. Like Herbert was the single greatest miss that I've ever had in like fantasy. Like I was so wrong about him, and I just like looking back to some of our videos, and I remember like the only reason why I have him is because like I refuse to let a quarterback with that much draft capital fall out of the top 10 picks. So like every time he fell there, I would just grab him. But like I think I really latched on to like him, like basically the biggest critique was like he couldn't handle pressure, right? In college, like whenever he had pressure, like he was basically folding like a chair. And in the NFL, that has not been the case at all. And for whatever reason, he's been able to like step up in the pocket and stuff like that. So it's been great to be proven wrong and just see him. And I'm paying the price by investing in the NFL cards because I don't have him on much in Dynasty. So that's kind of how I'm getting exposure to Herbert. But yeah, he's been incredible. He's in historic pace for his first 6 games. He's like top 5 like all time in terms of like his efficiency, like adjusted yards per attempt, like yards output, like everything. He's just like slamming. I think him by himself has extended Keenan Allen by like at least another like couple years as a wide receiver one.
Any Chargers
game is ridiculous.
Yeah, Keenan Allen I moved him. I was redoing my dynasty rankings today a little bit after last week, and Keenan Allen might have moved up like 30 spots,
Yeah.
and he was like 27 before, so you could do the fucking math on that. Keenan Allen, huge riser after this. Herbert has literally brought life back into him. It's so disappointing knowing what Austin Eckler would have been this year, dude. Like he would have probably been a top 5 fantasy running back right now had he not got hurt.
100% would have been
back.
top 5.
Mr. God, you are up at the 104.
Yeah, speaking of guys that catch passes out of the backfield but don't actually catch passes, we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the man that cannot find the end zone. Mike would have taken him at the 102, as we just discovered. He's an idiot for doing that. But at the 104, that's a pretty good value because anytime you're tied to the Chiefs offense, even if you're fucking Darrell Williams, if you're the starting running back, or Spencer Ware, or whatever bum you put back there, you're going to put up fantasy points. And now he's in a time split this year. So his rookie year, it's kind of up in the air. But you got to remember he was a first-round pick. They get that 5th-year option on him. He's probably going to try to hold out. But even then, if they do keep him for 5 years, you're getting 4 years after Bell's gone, 4 years of probably elite production out of a guy that can catch passes out of the backfield and probably won't be as unlucky with his touchdowns as he has been to this point so far. I mean, 2 weeks ago, he had like 26 carries for 170 yards. Week 1, he looked incredible. It's only the touchdowns that are missing. And I think a lot of it is just because every touchdown that they score is like 50, 60, 70 yards out. He's not getting as many opportunities as we would hope inside the red zone, inside the 10, and inside the 5. So he's just somebody that when you're attached to Patrick Mahomes, when you're attached to an offense led by Andy Reid, and you have the talent that he has in a full 3-down skill set, hopefully he becomes a better blocker. Not that he's a no-miss prospect, but at this point, he's easily a top 12, top 10 dynasty running back for me.
I wonder if Bell considers a lowered money extension with the Chiefs. I wonder if he's like, I don't want to do this whole free agency thing again. I don't trust my agents to do something dumb again. Like, let's just take a 2-year.
He probably doesn't need that much money though, like for his album sales. You can just take it like
It's a good point. Take the whole
I think it depends. It depends. Like, I think if they go ahead and they win a Super Bowl this year, I would bet like Bell like tries to cash in again, right? Because then he has like that Super Bowl on his radar, and like the second Super Bowl, and like I think it'll be less important. But let's say like they make it to like the Super Bowl and they lose, and they're like that close. I think once he gets a taste of that, he'll probably be more willing to kind of like stay there. I think it really depends on what happens there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's why I think there are, like, you love the situation, and Clyde's looked great in different pockets of this year so far, but there are a little bit more hesitation towards like investing in him now than there was at the beginning of the year. As soon as what's his name opted out, Damian Williams, he'll probably be back next year too, so that could add another little question mark into the mix. I guess, like, with Clyde, it's such a big factor of what he does for this rookie year that will factor into dynasty, like where you would rank him right now. That's why I took DeAndre Swift at 105. And to be honest, if I was at the 104, I might have taken Swift over it, because rest of season, I don't think I can confidently say Clyde outscores Swift, because the way things are going right now, it feels like we're so close to seeing them just like hand over the keys to Swift. He's slowly getting more snaps each week. He's slowly getting more touches and groundwork, and he's looking good doing that. Right now, he's like quietly the running back 21 on the year. So almost a top 20 running back. Carry-on has been completely phased out of the offense. And like, whereas Clyde can't score, Swift can't fucking stop scoring. He's got 5 touchdowns on the year already. So he is becoming like basically every part of the offense we wanted. All the pass catching work. He's on pace for almost 55 receptions this year. He's getting the majority of the goal line work too. He's out carried AP 5-2 on the goal line. And I mean, like, there's only so long that Matt Patricia and his like malnourished brain can fucking continue giving Adrian Peterson carries that go over half the yards. So like, eventually he's going to be phased out. And I think we're slowly starting to see it more and more. So I think rest of season, we're probably going to see like a top 15 running back out of Swift right now. And I think by next year, obviously, he becomes a guy in that backfield. Hopefully Patricia's gone.
Nick, what's that video? The Unforgivable video? That dude, the McChicken sandwich? That's how
unforgivable.
Yeah. That's how Matt Patricia's using Swift. It's very unforgivable.
Waffle fries for free.
It is fucking unforgivable. It's ridiculous. Adrian Peterson goes out there. It's like Swift breaks off 42-yard run. Next 3 runs are Adrian Peterson, like 2 yards, 4 yards. It's like, what game are you fucking watching? You're literally 5 feet away from DeAndre Swift when you get to watch him run on the field, but you'd rather put AP back out there. So it drives me crazy, but I think we're starting to see the signs, right? At least he has been the leading snap guy there for 2 or 3 straight weeks now. He's getting all the touches now too. So we're slowly starting to creep that up and up and up, and he's breaking big plays and shit. And that's what we saw from him at Georgia. So never a question of the talent. It was always that committee. And I think we're like on the precipice of that Miles Sanders type second half.
And I think it's important to keep in mind that like week 1, they had that game in hand. He dropped the pass to win the game. And then like the next few weeks, he was kind of seeing a lower snap share. He wasn't getting on the
in the
field as much.
doghouse.
They come out of the bye,
Mhm.
and now he gets not a huge snap share, but definitely an improvement, getting a lot more usage. He's very explosive. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's definitely talented. I think you're right, Nick. As the year goes on, it's only going to go up from here, and he could have that Miles Sanders breakout. And if he takes that into next year and Kerryon Johnson isn't on the team, I'm not sure what his contract situation is. I don't think it really matters. And he does eventually become a workhorse, and you can definitely argue for him to be not even a top 4 pick, but probably a top 2 or 3 pick.
Yeah, I like that Swift pick. And, backing up that Swift pick, I'm going to go with my boy here, J.K. Dobbins. Big fan of him all offseason. Haven't really seen the usage. Like, he's been incredibly efficient and explosive on the touches he has had, similar to Swift, but he just hasn't got any touches. And we know now, I think Mark Ingram has a high ankle sprain, right? So he's going to be gone. But he's still going to be sharing the backfield with Gus, the God, the bus. So it's going to be interesting to see how those splits. They're coming off their bye this next week, so we'll be able to see that soon. But I'm still a big buyer of J.K. Dobbins' talent. I've liked what I've seen from him so far, and so I kind of went with him there because he's kind of that last cusp of the top end running backs. And I agree with you, Nick. Like, I think him and Swift are super close, and in a full PPR format, I'm going to go with Swift as well. Even a half PPR, I might still go with Swift, but J.K. Dobbins is kind of right behind him. And then I backed him up with that other pick, which is Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, I had back-to-back picks. I kind of just went bing bang, but you can make an argument for Tua going ahead of J.K. Dobbins, even potentially ahead of Swift, because we've all, I don't remember if you guys were, but I've been a big fan of Tua like ever since the offseason. So now that he's kind of getting his role into the offense is kind of exciting to see. I actually couldn't believe they benched Fitz. Felt really bad for him. He came out here and said like how heavy his heart was because he was playing pretty good ball, right? Like some of the best of his career. But
Dude, he looks so fucking good. It was such a odd time. I mean, I guess the bye was there, so it made a little bit of sense, but I don't know. I
think
like
Tua's just ready. I think what this says is like Tua is ready,
Yeah.
and like we need to see if this is our guy, which is really really cool for Tua. I mean, people got mad at Tua. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, this guy
probably also because they believe in their team. They probably didn't want
Yeah.
to throw Tua out there if they were like 1-5, borderline 0-6, and just getting fucking pounded by every defensive line. So at this point, Fitz has played well, but they're 3-3, and it's not like Fitz is the team of the future. He's not really going to carry them anywhere this year.
Yeah.
So you're right. It was definitely time with Tua.
Yeah, it was time for him, and I think more importantly here, I've covered this before, but the reason why I'm comfortable taking Tua is I really really like what the Dolphins have done with their org, right? Like the way they built it. Brian Flores is the coach, the first seems like the first coach from the Belichick tree that isn't total fucking trash. He's been solid. Like basically took that losing culture and turned around within 1 year. They've invested in the O-line. Like the O-line is nowhere near how bad it was like last year, right? Then they have, they have some weapons in Parker, Preston Williams. I really, really like how this team is being built. And like a lot of people think they're going to draft a running back next year. And like, just like how everyone thought they're going to take Swift this year, I'm not so sure because Myles Gaskins has been playing pretty damn good. And they still need to fill other pieces. Like, can you imagine if Tua gets fucking Jalen Waddle next year on the Miami Dolphins? This is going to be.
I'm sorry, but Darnell Mooney just continues to get overthrown on deep passes.
Dude, I can't watch. I can't watch Darnell Mooney get overthrown anymore, man.
They're the only team without a 40-yard pass play this season. Darnell Mooney should be leading the NFL in 40-yard pass plays.
I just can't do 40-yard play.
They're yet to have one. It says.
Oh, I was talking about the Jets. I'm surprised they even have 40 yards.
I can't do it anymore.
Oh, I think remember Jamison Crowder busted off like a fucking Adrian Peterson type fucking play. It was ridiculous. All right. Yeah. So Tua there makes a lot of sense. I'm so curious to see, are all three of these top quarterbacks going to hit? Because like Burrow and Herbert have hit beyond our imaginations. And now, typically we see a lot of early quarterback busts because the value of the position pushes them up NFL draft boards, usually pushes them above their talent level sometimes, right? So that tends to be the case a lot. But I guess Tua, the only reason he even dropped was probably because of the whole, hip surgery, obviously. So I'm excited to see him get on the field, and I think he's going to be a stud as well. So 3 stud quarterbacks right here. That's when you start investing in the 2020 rookie football cards box.
Oh, baby. Baby.
Yeah, so we're at the 108 right now. So far, we've had Jonathan Taylor, Joe Burrow, Herb and Nader, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Tua, and I'm at the 108. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb. Now, had CeeDee Lamb still had Dak Prescott there, I think you could probably argue him like I don't even know if there's a point in which I would tell you to stop arguing.
Yeah.
Probably realistically after the two quarterbacks, maybe like the 103, 104 in that range. But
Yeah.
if you wanted to take him where those other running backs were, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. He was balling. It took him like 11 seconds to surpass Michael Gallup. Like legitimately, like no time. And he was a wide receiver 2 out there. And
he was a wide receiver 1. He was a wide receiver 10.
yeah, like
with that.
so fucking good. And he made Gallup an afterthought. And regardless of what the quarterback situation is right now, like we saw what CeeDee Lamb is in the NFL. He had, prior to this game against Washington, he had 5 catches or more in every single game. He was on pace for 96 receptions, which is absolutely unheard of for a rookie wide receiver. So the remainder of the year, obviously, they're going to be ups and downs because we don't know who's going to be at quarterback, Andy Dalton or fucking Benny DiNucci over there, and it's going to get a little fucking messy. But I expect Dak to be fine next year. And regardless, I think he'll be fine for the rest of the year. Not, the wide receiver 1 or 2 that he had been up to this point, but I think running 95% out of the slot means that he'll still get easy targets from these quarterbacks. But Dak should be fine next year, and CD should be fucking back. And I'm curious to see if anything happens at the trade deadline with Michael Gallup, actually. The trade deadline is next Tuesday, November 3rd, I believe. Also, Election Day. Make sure you get your asses out and vote this year, people. I want to know if teams like Green Bay come calling for Michael Gallup, teams like that. That would be interesting. I haven't heard any rumors or reports or anything, but if they're just going to kind of, I doubt they're like tanking on the season just because it's the fucking NFC East at this point, and you could probably get in with a losing record. But who knows, man? I'm all in on CD. We saw what we needed to see, and we know who he is.
Yep. Yeah, baller.
You go, Mike.
I was just gonna say, I launched that video probably after when I did it for Market Watch Mondays, week 3, week 4. I was like, yeah, CeeDee Lamb is no longer on the trade block for any of my teams because I've seen enough. The reason why I was so comfortable is look, he had that great profile coming in, he had the film coming in, he had everything, right? And then he lived up and exceeded all those expectations. I talked about this a little bit with T. Higgins. I talked about it a little bit with others, but we very rarely get any insight into the mentality of a player, right? So when I can see guys that are hyped at every stage of their career consistently over deliver, I think that gives you some insight into the psyche and the mental makeup of some of these players. That's why I love T. Higgins. That's why I love CeeDee Lamb. It's been crazy. This has been one of the best.
That's why I love
this class.
FB God.
What?
That's why I love FB God. Been hyped up his whole career. Keeps over delivering. The kid just keeps stepping the game up. It's the man bun. It's the headband. It's the beard. It just doesn't stop.
There's nothing going on my chin. Don't even worry about
it. I love it.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. If had Dak not gone down, I would have a hard time not taking him in the top 4 or top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and somebody who wasn't hyped at every part of their career yet blew everybody's faces off. We got Justin Jefferson, a famously touted 2-star recruit, goes to LSU, is an absolute animal, gets pushed into the slot by what's buddy's name at LSU right now, Jamar Chase. People are saying he's a bum because that offense was great and everybody around him was just because of Joe Brady. We now see him with a terrible quarterback in Kirk Cousins and just putting up 100 yards like it's his day job. He is basically the discount version of CeeDee Lamb. I guess it's not too much of a discount because he's going 1 pick after him. But in rookie drafts last year, he was more discounted going in the early second round, whereas Lamb was the 107, 108 type of pick. He has just greatly outperformed all of my expectations, especially as a rookie. People are making fun of them for trading away Stephon Diggs for this pick because Stephon Diggs is great. Turns out Justin Jefferson is almost as good as him and 4 years younger. He's basically what CeeDee Lamb is. He can win deep down the field. He can win after the catch, and he is playing on the outside, which is something that a lot of people thought he couldn't do because he played the slot his last year at LSU. Turns out he can play on the outside, and if they do bring in somebody that's going to play the outside, he can go back to the inside and dominate. So he's just somebody that is tied to an offense that, at least this year, is going to have to throw the ball a whole hell of a lot because their defense stinks. I know that they paid Dalvin Cook and they extended him, so he's going to be around there for a long time, but he was also there this year, and he's still been breaking out. So I just think as the years go on, we're going to see Justin Jefferson slowly overtake Adam Thielen as the number 1 in that offense, as he kind of already has already. He's seeing a ton of targets. It's a consolidated target share on a low volume offense, which I'm fine with because we've saw guys like Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett do it in the past in offenses that didn't want to throw a lot. But when you're seeing 8-9 targets, it doesn't really matter how many times the team overall throws. So I'm completely fine taking Justin Jefferson at the 109 here, just because he does seem like a top 10, top maybe even 8 dynasty receiver. I think I moved him inside my top 10 this past week, even though that they didn't play. I just think it's too much to pass up on given his age and his production at this point.
Wait, he's a
Yeah.
top 10 dynasty receiver for you?
For me, yeah.
Yeah, he is for
Goddamn.
me. He's back to back with CeeDee Lamb for me.
How does he go to 109 and fucking wherever you get him in a rookie draft right now is just like too valuable. It makes no
Yeah.
fucking sense.
I mean, this class is just stacked, right? Like
Yeah.
look at the look at the people we've chosen. Like there's just like nothing wrong with anyone we've chosen. It's just that there's just like this is one of the best classes ever.
This next pick is so bad though.
Yeah, one of the best classes ever. A guy that didn't even get drafted. We got James Robinson, the 110. I know the
God.
Jaguars are a complete shit show, but one thing that they can do is pick up guys off of free agency and turn them into animals. They got like Alan Lazard off of undrafted free agency. They cut him. He went to Green Bay. Now he's an animal. Keelan Cole's a beast. He was an undrafted free agent as well. James Robinson is every bit of a workhorse running back that you could imagine. He is exactly what Leonard Fournette was last year, except Leonard Fournette stunk, and this guy's actually good. He just absolutely annihilated the Chargers. They still won the game, so I'm all right with it. He's like a top 2 or 3 running back on the season right now, and I see no reason for them to invest in the running back position anytime soon. They're going to have a top 2 or 3 pick this year. They're obviously not taking a running back there. Maybe at the top of the second, they want to fiddle their whatever and pick up Travis Etienne or Najee Harris. I just don't see it. There's no reason to invest that highly in a position that doesn't matter that much when you can get a guy like James Robinson for extremely cheap, have him for 4 years, extend him cheap. And we've seen like Divino Zigbo came back this week, didn't play any snaps. Chris Thompson, who Jay Gruden loves, doesn't even get on the field. I know he's on the COVID list, but early in the year he wasn't out there. Obviously, Raquel Armstead has had some like health complications, but James Robinson is just a guy who has been playing like 60, 70, and now like 90% of the snaps for this offense, all around skill set. And I know it's a little bit crazy to pick him at the 110, but honestly, like if he was picked in like the 3rd round and he had the production that he has right now, he could be talked as like a top 4 pick. It's just the draft capital that's keeping him a little bit more undervalued, in my opinion.
Yeah, this first round is getting crazy because I'm taking Antonio Gibson at 111, and in like most drafts, if he was in the draft with like Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs, he probably would have been in that discussion with them. And you're getting him down at 111. I feel like, going into the year, this is kind of how I expected him to be. And I think he's actually getting more work than I expected him to. He's like already he's already gotten into the workload of what I thought like his sophomore or junior year would be. And he's coming off this 20 carry game. It was the first time he's gotten like a real significant number of carries. We're obviously seeing like JD McKissick take a little more passing work than we'd like to see because he's such a good athlete. But they clearly love this kid. They clearly think he's the future of their backfield, and they're giving him more and more each week. And they're going to continue to develop him. You hear Ron Rivera come out he continues to come out and say like he was a wide receiver at Memphis. We're letting him learn to be a running back, over and over again. So this shit is going to come in time, but they clearly see him as the future of that backfield. And you're about to get a dude whose athleticism matches, the comps all offseason were like Joe Mixon, David Johnson. Like when you put him in the combine type area, he's as good as anybody. And now you're getting the workload. Like that will eventually pour into a ton of production. We're already seeing it his rookie year. Again, inconsistent, kind of a roller coaster year, but like the upside of what he brings to the table is huge. So Gibson at 111, I thought was an easy pick.
Yeah, and we're recording this after week 7. They go into their bye this week. I think like DeAndre Swift, we might just see a complete change in the guard, and they might hand over the keys to the backfield to him just because I know this past week they played Dallas, and literally anybody can rip off Dallas. I mean, Dearness Johnson was like mahi fishing. He came into the fold, and he put up like 95 yards against them. I think that honestly, though, they're playing like the Giants coming out of the bye, and then I think like Detroit and then Dallas again. Why not just keep feeding him 15 to 20 touches a game because he can obviously turn a few of those into 40 and 50-yard gains. He's getting the goal line work. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. I think going forward, as he does establish himself as the one in this backfield, he's going to be a big value even at the 111. It's just such a stacked class. You can't really take him much higher than this.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, what is there to say about James Robinson that I haven't said already? I mean, people are like, go back and forth on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh, I want to wait and see what like Divine and Zigbo does." What?
He hates Antonio Gibson that much.
Talking about Antonio Gibson, you cunt.
Yeah, but I want to go back to James Robinson because you guys didn't let me talk about him.
No, I know what the issue is. He doesn't want to talk about T. Higgins.
I get it. I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I just want to say, look, James Robinson's been a stud. If you guys acquired him, great job. Hopefully you weren't one of those people that rushed to sell him for like a 2nd-round pick or some shit like that because that's all dumb. But yeah, Gibson. Look, we said Gibson was our RB6 or basically after the big 5 we had Antonio Gibson, right? And back then like he was going for like a 3rd-round pick, and He landed in Washington. We didn't love it. Noah and I liked it a little bit more than Nick did, but it's totally worked out in his favor. Honestly, he's accelerated way faster than I thought he would be, like in terms of his role, which is crazy because people keep telling me he's only had 33 carries in Memphis. I'm not sure how that's possible, but he's managed to do that and increase his carry count while he's in the NFL.
I forget at this point, was Geis on the team still when he was drafted or not yet? Or was
he was.
gone?
No, he was.
Okay,
no,
that's probably why. I forgot. Forgot Geis was like in the fucking league.
Remember, like Geis was there, and then like that shit came out, and then like everyone's like, "Oh shit, we're gonna move Gibson up to like basically where Geis was." That was kind of the thought process. But yeah, dude, these both guys, if you invested in them, smashed. Like Gibson, we told you to smash him in like the late second, early third. He was readily available, and now first round pick. So if you want to, if you're a rebuilder, you want to like cash out, like go for it.
Like how high is Gibson going to be picked next year in startup drafts? Like I can't imagine he's going to fall out of the third round in like any of them.
I mean, he's not going to go later than like at least where David Montgomery went this year, right? David Montgomery's like a fifth round.
Well, it depends if Brett's in your draft because that's third round.
Yeah.
No, he's going to go way higher than Demont because
that's what I mean. That's like his floor.
Yeah, I think he'll go. Yeah, I would say like end of the third round. So I'm like, if you're getting him at the back end of a rookie draft right now, and he's going to be a startup like fucking third round pick, I'm all in on that. So you know what, Mike, lead us to the promised land of the titties.
Welcome to the land of the free, home of the brave, headquarters
sucker of the titties
of Titty Higgins. I mean, I had to deal with these hooligans fucking disrespecting my man Titty Higgins all offseason, talking about how he's not good. But we had to hold strong, and this is why, man. Titty Higgins has been balling out. He is already the wide receiver one on the team. Nobody expected that. Not even me. I thought he's gonna like take some time, sit behind AJ Green, sit behind Tyler Boyd, but he's like, nah, fuck that. Like I'm commanding the targets like right now, and he has looked really good. That's the way I can put it. Like he's had 20% target share. Honestly, like I don't think the gap between Higgins, Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb is really that wide at all. Especially because if we're looking at the quarterback situation, like he's tied to Joe Burrow, and I honestly, like if I can get,
I believe that you believe that.
Yeah,
that's the way. Man, that would take CEH at the 102.
Look, these guys are going to keep disrespecting Titty Higgins. They're just not going to learn their lesson. So
behind the scenes, I'll slowly keep moving them up my dynasty.
I'm going to let you guys learn. And when you guys catch up to me, let me know. But Higgins has balled out, and I just love the fact he's attached to Joe Burrow. And that's going to be a high-passing offense. Their defense stinks. It's going to be high-passing this year. He's going to get a ton of volume this year. And he just looks good as the true alpha. Like I think it's really rare, right? Like with someone like CeeDee Lamb, people harp on him on this. I don't really care that much because I don't care how you score fantasy points, but he's primarily running out of the slot, right? Versus someone like Jefferson and T. Higgins. They've like basically they're the wide receiver ones, and they're already taking on the top end cornerbacks most of the time. So I think that's really impressive to do as a rookie. In terms of like dynasty, like I don't know exactly where he is, but he's probably like in like top 15 or something like that already in terms of where he's ranked. So yeah, look, I don't know where you guys are drafting him. I just know that it's probably too late.
That's probably where I would have taken him. I would have debated. I think that the two picks you made here were probably the right picks. I might have went with. I think I actually would take Higgins over Akers, your next pick. But that's the first round so far. So we got
I think JT, Sean McVay would take Higgins over Akers too.
Sean McVay would take a fucking ham sandwich over Cam Akers right now.
JT, Joe Burrow, Herb, Clyde, Swift, Dobbins, Tua, CD, Justin Jefferson, James Robinson, Antonio Gibson, T. Higgins. If we had to redo it all over again, that is the first round, 7 weeks into the season. So the biggest riser is obviously James Robinson. I think he was pretty wildly undrafted throughout most of the rookie drafts. And then who's like the biggest? I guess we can go with like faller when we get to the other
pick,
ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's start.
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest fallers is the one that I'm taking right now, and it's Cam Akers. And I to be frank with you, I made this pick before this game, before his retirement party. But he's basically not being used. I mean, he's getting outplayed by Darrell Henderson, who most of us wrote off, including myself. He's getting outsnapped by Malcolm Brown. So things are not looking good at all for Cam Akers. There's really no positives other than the fact that before he got injured, he's looking like he was getting more of a role, and the fact that the Rams O-line actually looks a lot better than all of us thought it would be. So I think those are the only positives. But in terms of usage, man, like nothing is there. But why am I taking him here after all that? It's like it's still only half the season, right? I mean, we got to remember, like these guys do take time to develop, and I said from the jump, like Cam Akers is someone that's going to take time to develop. He is very raw. He played quarterback in high school. And look, he's on a good offense, a good enough offense. And he's on an offense where they are producing fantasy points at the running back position. I can't imagine Malcolm Brown being there long term. And he's got the draft capital. He's got the athleticism. And I still think he's a really good player, right? The injury kind of set him back a little bit. But I'm still in on Cam Akers. I'm willing to invest in him. And, it took some time for Swift to break out. I think it's going to take some time for Cam Akers to break out. But I do still think he is the best running back in the backfield.
Yeah, we'll move on to 202. This seems to be like the little row of guys who were drafted really high, and now you're kind of getting them at value because their shit just dropped, whether it's lack of performance or getting hurt or whatever. That's my guy right here, Jalen Reagor. And I know all three of us were, you guys probably a little higher on him than I was going into the year, but I mean, not that I disliked him. I still totally believe in the kid's talent. And like, just because he's been injured doesn't mean he has played poorly when he's on the field. You look at like what's going on in Philly right now. Like Djax is done. Djax is probably done for the fucking year. Alshon Jeffrey, they're talking about trading him. I feel like he could have been back 3 weeks ago if they really wanted him back on the field. So he's done, at least in Philly, as far as my mind goes. He's their first-round pick. Like, they want him to be the wide receiver one there. He just got activated off the IR. So I think we do see him get back on the field, like, really quickly. I'm excited to see him get back on the field and kind of get his value back up to where it was pre-regular season and kind of pop off the second half of the year, as they obviously desperately need weapons outside of Travis Fulgham, who is like maybe Travis Fulgham is what we thought Jalen Reagor was going to be.
Dude, I think if anything, the fact that you're seeing what Travis Fulgham is doing is pretty illuminating, right? In terms of what Rager's going to do when he's coming back. Like, that offense is picking up a little bit more. Wentz is not looking like the fucking trash can that he was for the early part of the season. And they are throwing a lot. And look, Travis Fulgham's been good, no doubt about it. But I don't think Travis Fulgham is as good as Jalen Reagor. So when Reagor comes back, in the couple plays that he did make when he was healthy, he looked fucking outstanding. He was getting looks deep, which is exactly what we want to see. He was physical at the catch point, and he's everything we wanted to be. I mean, I'm going to pass on to Noah because this is your guy. So where would you have taken him, Noah? I'm actually curious.
Mike, you're not going to like this, but he would have went ahead of T. Higgins for me. I think that the talent is still there. The only thing we haven't seen is production, but he's been hurt. I mean, early on, he caught like a 55-yard. What happened?
I'm kidding. I actually, it's totally fair to like flip back and forth between T. Higgins. Like, I actually have them in the same tier. So.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking good before he got hurt. Like you said, he was getting pretty good usage. Deshaun Jackson's gone, so he's in a man-that deep role. But we also know that he can win after the catch. So I just think that we shouldn't take away anything from his talent just because of his injury. And it looks like he may not be back this week. But if he does come back after the bye, they get all in a row: the Giants, the Browns, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Saints, the Cardinals, and the Cowboys. Those are all either very soft games or games where they're going to have to throw a lot. The wide receiver core and the receiving core as a whole is completely depleted. Maybe Dallas Goedert comes back after the bye, but other than that, it's just Fulgham, it's Goddard, and it is Jalen Reagor. So I just think that he's going to probably blow up after the bye, and we're going to see why they drafted him in the first round. I just think he's way too talented to disappoint at the 203 right here, or the 202 right here. Whereas the guy at the 203, I know Animal is crying tears about Jerry Jeudy. This guy, it's kind of a fraud. I mean, people wanted to make fun of the way his knees bent. More power to him, because the way that they're bending right now isn't helping him catch any passes. He's catching like 2 to 3 passes a game. His only big game was when he mossed some guy in the Jets. I think it was like Pierre Desir. Other than that, he's just basically West Coast Willie Snead, catching like 3 passes for 40 yards every game. It's kind of disappointing because he was like the 101 for like everybody's rookie drafts heading into the draft. And then they realized, hey, this guy didn't do as well in his junior year as a sophomore year. Let's move him to the 109. So he did have a little bit of a fall from grace. I do think it does have to do with the quarterback situation, because Drew Lock is a fucking bum. And we tried to tell you that this offseason. Nobody wanted to listen, whatever. They did put up Britt Rippin. They did have like Brandon Allen last year. So I don't know what's going on.
Can you blame them? We've been targeting Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. That's two big ass fucking quarterbacks we were wrong on. It would be a nice trifecta if Drew Lock just shit on our chest as well. So,
yeah, if you're over 220 pounds, we're probably wrong about you. But we were also wrong about Jerry Jeudy a little bit, who's probably like 180 soaking wet. So he's been a disappointment. I would still bet on his talent though, being able to produce in the future. But Cortland Sutton's going to be back next year when this offense is probably going to be a little bit better than it is right now. He's probably never going to be the number one as long as he's there. So his upside is capped. So as it looks right now, he's like a perennial wide receiver 2 on his own offense.
I think that's a takeaway, right? Like, before the season, the reason why I wasn't as high on Jerry Jeudy is because I think like Cortland Sutton is the dude. But if you think back to it, like, I mean, my comp, like the biggest comp for the most favorable comp for Jerry Jeudy is like Calvin Ridley, and not to like be like a helmet scouter, but like they're very similar style of players, just like catch and fall, great crisp with the routes, and like smaller in stature, right? But I think the key takeaway for me here is like they don't have like an Atlanta passing offense, right? They don't have like Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
So the way Matt Ryan supports Julio and Ridley, I'm not sure that happens here with Drew Lock, who stinks. And I think, sorry, I don't want to make all the Drew Lock people mad. He doesn't stink. He's just bad.
Very considerate of you.
Yeah, but I think what this says is like, dude, Cortland Sutton is that dude, right? Because Jerry Jeudy right now is straight up getting outplayed by Tim Patrick. There's like no two ways about it. And Tim Patrick is really playing that role that Sutton plays, and you see like Drew Lock willing to push it down the field, and that's the guy that's going to get those targets. So I'm not in the camp of a buy low on Jerry Jeudy yet. I think if you can get it for cheap for like a second round pick, then obviously do it, which is what we can see here. But I'm much more interested in acquiring Cortland Sutton at a discount.
Yeah, so, I mean, second round picks in this draft are like usually first round picks in most years. So if you could push that off, like not every year is going to be like this, where you're getting a fucking Jerry Jeudy at the 203 and getting a little Visca action next.
Yeah, Noah, dude, take it away, man.
I probably should have taken Laviska Shenault over Jerry Jeudy, but I mean, this guy's incredible.
You're going to go from like hating a guy to loving a guy, but taking him afterwards.
I don't know. After the video we made about him, I'm like, he can't be good because everybody I hype up stinks, but he's been everything that we hoped for. I mean, at the combine, he like pulled both his hamstrings clean off the bone. His core was like all torn apart, but it just seems like he's been healthy all season. His usage has been like a little bit up and down. The weeks that you play him thinking he's going to be a wide receiver too, he puts up 0 points. And the weeks that DJ Chark is supposed to blow up, he puts up like 14.5. So he's a bit of an enigma. But I do think that the versatility he brings to this offense and the skill set that he's shown just winning after the catch consistently, he's somebody I can't pass on at the 2-0. I can't do math, like 204, 205. He's just somebody that
Am I the only one? I just have a question because like Visca he's looked awesome. Like he's been fun to watch, but I don't know what his ceiling is in fantasy. And people love to be like, oh, not like what you said, versatility is good in terms of like, because that matters for fantasy. But like people be like, oh, he's so versatile. Like he's going to take carries. I'm like, dude, I don't care about 2 carries for 6 yards. Like that does nothing for me for fantasy. He's not the goal line back. Like I don't care if they line him up in Wildcat so he can gain 7 yards on the ground. Like that does, So my question is like what his real ceiling in fantasy is. Like I'm someone who owns Visca in multiple places, and I'm like, I'm kind of at a crossroads whether or not I believe long-term that he's going to be like a real, dynasty fantasy asset.
I think he'd be like a Deebo Samuel. Like Deebo Samuel's not in a high-powered like passing offense, and he gets a few carries, which doesn't really lend itself to too many fantasy points. But I think what he can do after the catch, and even if it's like 50 to 60 catches on a season, he could turn that into like 800, 900 yards.
I feel like that's more like on the coach though. Like Shanahan's so good at scheming that, and I don't fucking trust anything that happens in Jacksonville, football or life-related. Anything in Florida, I want no part of.
Dude, I love Laviska. And I just love watching him play, first of all, and he looks like a fucking grown man out there. Like, people cannot tackle. Like, NFL safeties and defensive backs, grown men cannot tackle him. And we know, look, Jacksonville is not going to be a great team, so they're probably in line for the quarterback. If Justin Fields lands there, great for the stock. Even if one of the other guys land there, still, like, really, really good for stock. So I'm a buyer of the talent long-term, so I don't really think I'm looking to sell at all. He's got a good profile coming in. He's performed to date. And he's made Gardner Minshew look a lot better than Gardner Minshew has played.
Yeah, he's had like plays that are impressive, but I feel like I'm yet to see a game that he
hasn't
takes over. Like all these other rookie receivers, like T. Higgins has games where he takes over. Like all these guys have had those, and I don't get the consistency feeling. Like he'll always have those flash plays and have highlight plays because he's Visca and that's the type of player he is. But like I want to see a couple games down the second half of the year where it's like, okay, he went like 8 for 112 and a touchdown, broke like 3 big plays. You know what I mean? Like I want to see a full game of consistency from Visca.
Yeah.
In that sense.
No, for sure. That totally makes sense.
We need some more consistencies from my boy here at 205 as well. It's Henry Ruggs, and this is my worst nightmare. Them using him the way that they are using him. And I debated. This was probably one of the tougher picks. And looking at the board now, I probably would have taken Claypool over Ruggs here if I can go back and do it again. I want you guys to guess what percentage of Henry Ruggs' targets this year are deep targets? He's second in the NFL.
What
65.
percentage?
It's 50%. So
Yeah.
50% of his passes this year have been deep targets. And I'm like, fuck, like that's not the way they should be using him. Like he's
It's
a
really
really
good when
good
Derek
player.
Carr's a quarterback.
Dude, Derek Carr's been a fucking beast this year. Honestly, it should equate to more points for Henry Ruggs. But he's been good and limited. He was really hot to start the year, and then he got hurt, and then he came back. He had the big game last week, but it was on like 2 catches, and those are deep downfield targets. So like what I'll be keeping a really close eye on when it comes to Ruggs is how they deploy him over the second half of the year. Because right now, Noah, everyone out there that owns Aguilar can thank you for mushing him into score after score after score after score. But if Henry Ruggs just continues to be like this downfield Hail Mary guy, I'm going to be nervous about Ruggs. Like I want them to use him in slants. I want them to use him in the screen game because that's where his explosiveness comes from. So, I mean, listen, he is a rookie. He's shadowed by all these other rookies who are going crazy right now. And I think in a normal year, we'd be like, okay, Ruggs actually, he's doing fine. He's dealt with some injuries and et cetera, et cetera. But the usage is something I'll keep my eye on for sure. Second half of the year.
He's honestly, I think he's been pretty impressive. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I do think like the struggle is like Darren Waller. Like Darren Waller's just too fucking good to keep off the field, and like Darren Waller is getting all the underneath, like all the crossers, and I just don't see that changing. Like he's like one of the best tight ends in the league, and he's been just incredible as a pass catcher. So I think that's where Henry Ruggs will struggle a bit, and they still use Hunter Renfrow as well, like in that area. So like they need someone to fill that deep threat, and he's like doing his job, right? Like he's playing good football. He's making the most out of the opportunities he's getting. He's making some fucking incredible catches. But I agree with you for fantasy wise, like it's tough to really trust him. And I think they're gonna give Waller like a Kelsey type extension, and they're gonna keep him there long term.
I could see
I also think it's like kind of shitty that guys like CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown last year, DK Metcalf, like they've been so good as rookie receivers that guys like Henry Ruggs, who have looked impressive but haven't put up huge numbers, are just like we're writing them off already just because they haven't produced as like all these other guys have. We got to remember in the past, like not many first-year receivers are doing what a lot of these guys are doing. So I still think Henry Ruggs is definitely talented. He's definitely very fast.
Do we need to stop saying that though? Is that no longer a thing? Like, can we expect really good receivers to produce immediately? Because it feels like 3 years. Yeah, I feel like it's 3 years running. There was like, oh, we don't expect rookie wide receivers to produce for these 7 guys who did it this year, and these 7 guys who did it last year, and the 7 guys are going to do it next year.
That's true.
I think
Jalen Guyton's coming out there and producing already.
I
think that the
first
talent
9
is
for 900 stat line.
Talent is just too deep at the wide receiver position, and like the good players are just going to get on. And I think like you see it not only with wide receivers but with quarterbacks as well, right? If you think back in the day, like it was normal for guys to come in and sit, but right now it's like if they don't start within like the first 5 games, like pitchforks are out. So that's why you see like Justin Herbert's out there, Tua's getting in there now, Joe Burrow was on there from day one. And I think it's a very similar thing with like wide receivers where like coaches are more willing to let these guys kind of get the snaps and play, and if they are really good, like Higgins, like Lamb, all these guys are going to produce. And the 2021 class is another really, really talented and deep wide receiver class. So I think I'm gonna start adjusting to the point where like if these guys are not producing first year, it's gonna be a bit of a red flag for me. Just seeing the recent trends of like
I mean it's got to be relative to what you can put on the field today. It's relative to like the guys that they're competing against. You can't always look at it back to 2014 or 13. You're not comparing it to those guys because you're picking one or the other. Guys that are playing today.
Speaking of guys that are producing, probably you guys were surprised to see me pick him here, but I went with Chase Claypool, and I think this is a pretty good value in the mid-second round. I was a very big advocate against Claypool just because of his profile and stuff like that, but I mean the kid's been balling. It's very clear that he's like being treated as a top 3 option in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and this recent week, he put up a goose egg, and I think people are maybe worried now that he's not going to be good going forward. Part of that is because Deontay Johnson came back, who was an absolute baller, got hurt again at the end of the game, though. And part of that is like they were actually bracketing Claypool and treating him as a wide receiver 1. They put Malcolm Butler on him and then bracketed him over top with the safety for most of the game, and he didn't put up anything. So, but what he was able to do like early on has been incredibly impressive, and it's kind of hard to just ignore that and call it a fluke.
Yeah, I also don't think Juju's like long for Pittsburgh. It just seems like he's got to go. They don't they're not going to extend him. I think as a free agent this offseason, I don't think there's a reason to extend him just because Deontay Johnson, when he's on the field, he's the clear-cut alpha. As you said, Mike Claypool had one down game, but he also had like 4 touchdowns 2 weeks before, a touchdown last week. He's been running in touchdowns. The fact that he gets tackled at the 1 and then they have so much faith in him to be able to run it to him on the goal line just because they want to give him those touchdowns just shows that they want him to be a big piece of this offense. So I definitely think at the 206 or 7, I can't do this math. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I just think that that's a huge steal. And I could see you arguing him over a guy like Jerry Jeudy, Laviska Shenault, and a bunch of the receivers we already took ahead of him.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's as easy as watching the games at this point. It's like, okay, we were wrong. People were wrong on Claypool. He's just really fucking good at football. He's going to be on the field one way or another, whether it's through personnel or them just forcing him onto the field. And let's move.
Yeah. Back to back with him. Another guy who I wasn't that high on. It's Brandon Ayuk. I kind of laughed at the notion that people thought Brandon Ayuk was better than N'Keal Harry. It seems that's the case a few games in already, and we know Debo is kind of out for the next couple of games and get more time to shine. But yeah, he's basically like a Debo Carbon. They're using him out of the backfield. They're running him. They're trying to basically get the ball in his hands as much as they can. I actually really debated this pick and your next pick, Nick, and I ended up going with Ayuk. Just because, like, I believe in the organization a little bit more. But yeah, I think we'll kind of like move on to your next pick here, which is kind of interesting. And this, it's one I debated, and it's Denzel Mims. So why'd you go with Denzel Mims here?
Denzel Mims was just a dude that we know is athletically gifted, and seems like it was, just needed to get him on the field to kind of confirm that he could do it on an NFL field. And we only have literally a 1 week sample size, and it was Rashad Perriman in the concussion protocol and Jameson Crowder not on the field, but he looked good in the first week. And I mean, you can't hold his athletic profile against him when he's not on the field, right? Missed the first 6 games. He's a rookie playing in his first game. Commanded over a 30% target share with Sam Darnold this weekend, which is obviously a massive number. Again, very small sample size, but he was always a guy that I was high on. And he was a guy that I would have been targeting very early in the second round, if not like the late-ish first round, if all my guys are off the board. So to get him out like a 6 or 7 round or 6 or 7 pick discount just due to the injury, I'm here for it.
Yeah, same thing with the next guy, Bryan Edwards. He's somebody who famously broke his foot, didn't get to participate in the combine, and thus far has been injured basically throughout his entire rookie season. He was on the field a lot the first week that he played. Gets injured. He hasn't really done all too much. Mike already touched on it with Darren Waller. Probably going to be there for a long time. Going to be sucking up a lot of the targets that we would hope Bryan Edwards would get in the short and intermediate game. Obviously, we expect Henry Ruggs to develop as a player. Nelson Aguilar, for what he's doing right now, I'm not sure that's going to stick around. Bryan Edwards is just a guy that I know, like, not everybody loves to look at analytics, but he has like a pristine analytical profile when it comes to his breakout age, college dominator. The fact that he did it with guys like Hayden Hurst and Deebo Samuel while he was at South Carolina. Obviously, as we said before, we want to see these guys produce year one, but nothing has really lined up for him to be able to produce year one. So I'm going to believe in the talent here. And I'm going to take him ahead of the running backs who we're about to talk about, these 230-pound between the tackles grinders that really don't do much for you when it comes to fantasy. And speaking of, I think we got fucking Joshua Kelly. Really don't want to talk about him.
Who are you segueing into your fucking self?
Man,
all right, we're about to talk about it. Oh, wait, it's me?
I was hoping somebody else would talk about Joshua Kelly because I don't want to talk about this guy.
Nobody wants to talk about Joshua Kelly.
You just keep, dude, this entire list is fraudulent. You just keep taking the Chargers.
That's how good
Grow
they
up.
are. We got Joshua Kelly out of UCLA, hopefully going back to UCLA because I don't want to see him on a pro field. This guy's averaging like 2 yards a carry. He stinks, but when you look at the list after this, like I'd probably rather have him than Zach Moss, as Nick calls him, because he also stinks. But they have Devin Singletary there, who's probably a better pass catcher, although like he's not a good pass catcher. Everybody stinks.
I disagree. I think I would rather have Zach Moss than Joshua Kelly.
The video didn't go on too long when we're arguing Zach Moss and Josh Kelly.
I took the Hoss. At 211. This was not a positive Zach Moss notation. It was more of the detriment to Devin Singletary at this point. Like, this dude, he was so fun to watch his rookie year, and I don't know. I haven't really seen much this year that has looked promising whatsoever for Singletary. And Moss missed a few games, came back in this week, and it's a near 50-50 time split. So right now, like, I don't know. Moss looked better this week, and I'm sure maybe next week it'll be Singletary again. But I don't know. Moss is a guy who's at worst in a 50-50 time split and could eventually take over the starting role here. And there's just like no one left on the board that I think really has any fucking value left. So I was like, I'll go with Moss because Singletary stinks.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Singletary is not really in the high leverage touches. I mean, he's the running back 3 on his own team. So at least Zach Moss is a running back 2. Obviously, the RB1 is Josh Allen.
You're forgetting TJ Yeldon.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, TJ Yeldon. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, I actually prefer Zach Moss to Josh Kelly because, like, I mean, my pre-draft analysis, like, Josh Kelly was like the biggest jag ever. He's like the quintessential jag, and what he's done so far is exactly that. Like, he takes what's given, probably a little bit less than what's given, nothing more, nothing less. He's fine, and he's like a plotter, and he's there, and he gets carries, he gets volume, but like a lot of his empty volume, you know, if he's not getting a touchdown for you, he's not going to get it done. I think he's been outplayed by Justin Jackson so far, who's, I guess, hurt. So you kind of have to hold him for dynasty purposes. I'm not that interested in Joshua Kelly. In fact, like, I would take even the guy that I took to close out the second round, KJ Hamler, over Joshua Kelly, because I think there's probably
with
a bigger
Joshua
chance.
Kelly, though, like next year, on a serious note, because Eckler will be back obviously by the end of this year, and then next year Justin Jackson could be gone. Like, Kelly could play the same exact role next year as he's doing this year, and this offense could be one where if you have the goal line role, like, it could be pretty fucking valuable. So I think, like, as much as we hate Josh Kelly and we do think he stinks as a running back, he's probably worth the second round pick right now at the 211.
I think he's like in that scenario, he would be like a low volume Jordan Howard, with like maybe a couple of targets from him. But like the issue is, like, his role doesn't change, right? That's that's the mistake that I made. Like, I thought that his role would be more valuable if Eckler got hurt. Not the case. His role as a 2-down grinder, plotter, sometimes goal line back is just going to stay neutral. And once Eckler comes in, like, Eckler's just going to be way better than Justin Jackson, so he'll get.
We got to stop talking about Eckler. Actually, never mind.
I'm so sad right now.
I got to talk about very depressed about like most of my.
Man, I hate this guy.
It hurts so bad, dude.
But yeah, close out the second round real quick. KJ Hamler. I kind of, you know, he's been hurt as well, so a little bit of an injury discount here. This is basically where I would have taken him in normal drafts. He hasn't really moved that much for me. Like I said, like, Jerry Jeudy is not that like generational talent that everyone thought he was, and that's the reason why I wanted to bet on KJ Hamler. Because, hey, like, what if it played out? And it turns out that Tim Patrick's better than everyone, so it didn't play out exactly as I thought. But I do think KJ Hamler kind of adds that explosive element to the game, and I still think he could have like that Mecole Hardman type of rise. So I actually really like him here. I think the biggest follower, though, before we close this thing out, is Michael Pittman. He didn't even get drafted by any of us. And
Keyshawn Vaughn.
So depressing.
Yeah. So Keyshawn Vaughn stinks. So whatever. But Michael Pittman, like, why did you guys let him fall this far? Because, like, you know, we took a shot on some other injured players, but clearly he didn't get the same treatment. I think, you know, early on in the year, like, he was in that first round discussion, right? Like, people were taking.
Has he been out all this time? How long has he been out for?
He's been hurt for a while.
Probably 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. I guess, like, going back to the point of it being relative to other people around you or at your position and how they're producing, there have been a lot of guys who have been hurt this year, but when they're on the field, like, they've at least produced. And this is tough to do, like, make dynasty picks based off of 6 to 7 week sample sizes, right? Because one good game is going to shoot you up. One drop could be the difference between, you know, the 202 and the 210 or something like that. But it's just like when Pittman was on the field in the beginning of the year, and his matchups, like, it's fun looking back too at this point because you know how bad defenses are. The first 3 games were Jacksonville, Minnesota, and the New York Jets, and he did nothing against them. So it's like, fuck, like, that's all we have to work off of. But again, that's all we have to work off of. So it's like he didn't show up there when they didn't really have any other. I guess they had Paris Campbell and shit, but they didn't have a lot of passing weapons where he couldn't have broke out and made himself a role there. So I guess that's like the unconscious kind of like pullback on a guy like Michael Pittman for me.
Also, for me, it's the quarterback situation. Like, they have Phillip Rivers there. He's not long for Indianapolis. What are they going to do after that? Like, Jacob Eason, maybe Jacoby Brissett. It's going to be a mess there. I think they're going to be a run-happy offense. Paris Campbell's probably going to be the number 1 there, being a target hog out of the slot. And I wasn't too high on Pittman going into the draft and after the draft anyway, so not much has changed.
Yeah,
Mike, I thought sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say those are the points that I was going to go over. Like, we saw what Paris Campbell did. Right, so Paris Campbell seems like is going to be that guy. 1, 2, like, Phillip Rivers fucking stinks. But the problem is their team isn't bad enough to actually like get a top end draft pick at the quarterback position. Like they're probably going to finish like in the bottom half, maybe like the bottom third, based on how their schedule's looking going forward. So that's why like I'm not that high on Pittman. I wasn't high on him as a prospect anyways. So maybe a little bit of confirmation bias there. But yeah, it's just like the situation that just doesn't really bode well for someone like him to excel.
I was surprised you didn't take Jalen Hurts at the 212.
Dude, I thought about
wow, what a fucking catch by Robinson. Sorry. Beautiful throw and catch.
I definitely thought about it, taking Jalen Hurts. But like, you know, there's still like, I just feel like there's other guys that can kind of have some value. But I definitely, if it was a 301, I would have went back to back though with Jalen Hurts my next.
Yeah, knowing what we know now, I feel like his value would only rise because Wentz kind of confirmed what a lot of people thought, that he was kind of on the hot seat for a while. But again, like, so hard to know what the real common denominator is with Wentz and Philly. Is it like him? I mean, objectively, he's made a bunch of horror throws and he's looked terrible at times, but also he's like willed this team to a bunch of victories back to back while they're fucking completely dead on the offensive line and their weapons and stuff. So it's hard to get a read on it. But I still don't see Jalen Hurts starting any games this year. But he's right there if something does slip up.
Yep, for sure. All right, look, that's all we got for you guys. It's a freaking long ass episode. I'm tired. I'm hungry. You know, big dogs gotta eat, man. So we're gonna head out. Make sure you smash the subscribe button. Even if you don't like us, fucking subscribe. Just do it because eventually you will.
Show some fucking respect.
Show some respect. We will convert you. I promise you. Make sure you follow Nick, follow Noah, follow myself on Twitter. Talk trash. Tweet at Nick about the Atlanta Falcons. He fucking loves that shit. I can't say this enough. You just DM him, tweet at him. Anytime Falcons news comes out, just do it.
Hey, Noah, hit the outro.
We appreciate it.
Mike. Let's go.
Make sure you follow our channel, Noah and my channel as well, on Bunk Bed Breakdowns. Follow both of us. We have some exclusive content on there that isn't flooded on Nick's main channel just because we don't, there's too much content, too many different streams. So make sure you follow us on there.
I know you guys can only take so much of Mike's face. Once a week is more than enough. All this shit will be linked in the description. Just hit every fucking button on the way down there.
Hit it all.